Hello! This video is about connecting into the Paladin Cloud dashboard after installing it. If you haven't installed it yet, you may want to check out one of our previous installation videos. Now that we've installed Paladin Cloud, we don't need to keep the Paladin Cloud EC2 installer instance running, so we can come in here and stop that instance. We don't want to terminate it though. It will be useful if we ever need to get the status again, if we need to uninstall, or if we want to run an update for a future version. Because we installed Paladin Cloud in a VPC and didn't make it public, there's no way to access it directly from the internet. So to access this, we're going to need to access it from within the VPC. One way to do this is to create a new instance inside the VPC that we can then use to connect in. So that's what we're going to do now. Choose Launch Instance to create a new EC2 instance. Now it's time to configure this EC2 instance. We'll start out by giving it a name. Next, we'll choose an AMI that we'll use to connect in. For this, I'll use Windows. Next, we'll choose an instance type. A T2 micro is enough. Mostly, we'll just be using the browser to navigate to our Paladin Cloud dashboard. Let's add in some authentication. I'll go ahead and use this key I created earlier. By default, this is selecting the default VPC, which is where I installed. But if I'd used a different VPC, I'd want to make sure I selected it. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to access the Paladin Cloud dashboard. The default storage is plenty, so let's go ahead and launch the instance. With the EC2 created, it's now time to connect in. For this demonstration, I'll be using the RDP method. I'll go ahead and download that RDP file locally so that I can connect in, and then I need to get the login. Now, unfortunately, I just created this, and AWS does require a certain amount of time, I assume, for setup, and so we'll need to wait a little bit to be able to access our new instance. After a few minutes, it will allow us to upload our private key file. When we do this, we'll be able to get the admin credentials. Now, no worries, by the time you see this video, these keys and credentials have long since been deleted. Now that we've run the remote desktop file, authenticated in, it's going to begin configuring that remote PC. Now, since this is the first time connecting in, it is going to take a little while for this to boot up and configure everything. So we'll have a little bit of time for all of this to run. I'll try and speed things up here, but no, it does take a few minutes for everything to finally be configured. But what we're looking to do is gain access to the browser so we can use that URL we received earlier to connect into our dashboard. If you don't remember the URL, or maybe it was lost to a disconnect during the installation, you can always run the status command to relist all the information, including the dashboard URL. Let's switch over to that URL and copy it so we can go ahead and paste that here into our browser. You may need to close out of a few pop-ups to be able to get to enter that into the URL bar. Paste that in, and once it loads, it should redirect you over to the login page. Your login here will be the Cognito admin email ID you set during the Cognito configuration step of the installation process. You'll want to check that email address. You'll have been emailed a temporary password that you'll use to log in and then reset your password here. Go ahead and set that new password. Since we installed using the HTTP method and without an SSL certificate, you may get a pop-up after this letting you know that you're using a self-signed certificate. If you do, click Advanced and then choose to continue. And with that, we now have access to our Paladin Cloud dashboard. From here, we can see all of our violations being pulled in. For instance, we can see that our tagging is at 1% because we created a new custom tag and didn't define it, so that number is very low. Now, if you don't see anything right away, it can take a little bit, especially if you loaded this on a large account, for everything to load in. But if you continue to not see anything for a while, please reach out on Discord for support. We'd be happy to help. Go ahead, explore a bit. Check out your asset distribution. These assets are driven by our library of plugins. So the next step may be to add additional accounts or other plugins to really bring in your entire cloud asset inventory. You've now successfully installed Paladin Cloud and connected into your dashboard. Consider giving our GitHub repository a star. I'm John Richards, and I look forward to seeing you around in the community. Thanks for watching.